Hello everyone, welcome to the Organic Chemistry Lab. This is the first experiment, melting point, um, the melting point experiment. So here in part A, we're doing the melting point determination of known compounds. So we've already seen the first one that's shown. Our three unknowns are going to be hydrocinamic acid. We're going to have um, acetanilide, and then we're going to have the 3,5-dinitrobenzoic acid as our known compounds. And so when we look in our first well here under this little magnifying glass, so that would be the one to the far left, we're going to check its melting point determination. According to our lab manual, it should melt somewhere around 48.6 degrees C. And so we can see here, right now the DigiMelt has a reading of 30 degrees C. So as soon as it starts, we should see it begin to melt. All right, and that's what we're seeing happen, pushing the button. All right, and so remember, pay attention here to the far left well that has a capillary tube in it with hydrocinamic acid. All right, so we're at 40. Remember, we're looking around 48.6 according to our lab manual. We're at 45. All right, you can kind of see things starting to, ooh, look, it's definitely shrinking. It's melting. Whoa. All right, I would say it completely melted around 49 degrees C. All right, so we can kind of see here. All right, we are going to have a range, so you do want to make sure that you kind of fast forward and reverse to where you find all of find an adequate range to report for hydrocinamic acid. All right, now we're looking at this far right hand well, all right, where the arrow's pointing. All right, so for that one, you can see we're already hitting 90 degrees C, and we should be looking at acetanilide. All right. We removed lane 2 because it was bad, so we had to put in a different sample. All right, so we're up to 103. All right, and so it's supposed to melt somewhere around 114. We're getting closer. We're at 107. We're at 111. Oh, you can see it. Oh, there it goes. Up 114.8. All right, so and looks like it is completely melted. So we removed it from lane 3. Now we're putting in our third unknown. In this case, we should be looking at 3,5-dinitrobenzoic acid, and that melts all the way at 205 degrees C. So that's why now we're setting the melting range a lot higher. We've got a lot of we got a lot of temperature to cover here. So the starting temp for our investigation was approximately 180, and we're going to let it go all the way to 215. All right, so now the DigiMelt, it's not ready. Once it gets to 180, you'll see that little light on there. The ready light will turn green. Right now, the preheat light is what's lit up. So just like your oven, it's preheating, and you can see that temperature's moving real fast. All right, and so we do want to pay attention here with a melting point of 205 degrees C. Hopefully we won't be seeing it start to melt before 200. But we're 174, 175, 180. All right, nothing's happening. 184, 185. 190. 196. 200. Something happening yet? 203. Here we go. Something's happening. Alright, it is starting to melt. Alright, so 209, it had completely finished melting. Alright, we are skipping part B, going straight to part C, melting point determination of unknown C. So unknown C is going to be any of the compounds listed in our manual. Hydrocyanic acid, acetamide, acetanilide, benzamide, salicylic acid, 4-chloroacetanilide, and then the 3,5-dinitrobenzoic acid. So when we look at those melting points, we're seeing a range somewhere around 48 to 205. So we actually set the temperature range to go from 50 to 215 because since hydrocyanic acid and acetamide, those two have about a 30 to 40 degree C temperature difference. If we set it at 50, if it's hydrocyanic acid, it would have melted right away. So, and then that wouldn't leave us any confusion as to whether or not it was acetamide. All right, and so with our unknown C, we're already up to 65, so we want to check around 82. Do we see any melting? Alright, so we're coming up on 80. Doesn't look like anything's happening yet. 82, 83, 84. So no melting, so that takes acetamide off the table. Next, our next temperature we want to check is going to be 114 degrees C. So we're at 100. We're looking around 110 now. Not really seeing anything happen to our solid in the capillary tube. We're at 114 and nothing's happened, so that takes acetanilide off the table. Next up is benzamide. It will melt around 133 degrees C. So we're already at 123. 10 degrees more to go. Doesn't look like anything's happening. We're at 131 and 133. Nothing's happening. So we'll take benzamide off the table. Next up, salicylic acid melting around 159 degrees C. We've got about 20 degrees C left to go. We're at 140 now. Alright, we're at 150. I'm not really seeing anything melting. Nothing's happening. Alright, almost there at 154. 158. Alright, we've hit 159, 160. I don't see anything happening, so skipping salicylic acid, now going to a 4-chloroacetanilide at 179 degrees C. Alright, we're at 170. Not seeing anything happening yet. $176. Oh, I see things happening. It's starting to melt. 179, it's melting. 180, it's melt. Oh, so by 180, looks almost like by 182, it was completely melted. Alright, so it looks like it's going to be the 4-chloroacetanilide, but we don't really, sometimes we want to check to make sure. Alright, and so that's why we bring in talking about part D. So here in part D, if you look at that first well all the way to the left at around 125 degrees C, that first well it has already melted. All right, and the reason that's important is because we took unknown C and we mixed it with benzamide. We had to do that because salicylic acid was impure, so it kept melting too soon. And so with our benzamide, when you were looking at that first well all the way to the left, you would have seen that it had completely melted. Benzamide has a melting of 133. All right, and so now when we look at the remaining two wells, if you see that far right-hand well, it's already melting around 144. You could see it melting, but it actually hasn't completely melted. There's still some solid in there, so we want to pay attention now to that left lane. All right, so that left well right there, we're at 153. This lane has unknown C mixed with 4-chloroacetanilide, and so we were hypothesizing in part C that that's what the unknown was. All right, and so if we mixed unknown C and 4-chloroacetanilide, and they were both the same thing, then we should see a nice clean melt where everything just kind of turns into the liquid form. All right, and so if we recall, that's going to melt around 179. So as you can see, it does kind of look like melting has started at 174-ish. All right, and so we're at 176, 178, 179. Look at that, perfectly melted. All right, and so that kind of gives us a good indication of what we're looking at here, what unknown C is. All right, and so yet again, if you look at that mixture of 4-chloroacetanilide and the 3,5-dinitrobenzoic acid, that's going to be what's in the far right-hand well. It still hasn't completely melted. We're at 194. Still no melting has occurred. Not completely. Some of it has, but not all of it. All right, and so once we hit about 205, we would see it completely melt and look like this giant puddle, kind of how it looks in the left well, in the left capillary tube. All right. All right, so that should give you all the information you need to write a lab report. Good luck.